Hey, this is Nikki G from Better Commander asking, do you want to build a mill deck? Do you want to lose your friends? So you've committed to building a mill commander deck. You've embraced the idea that no one will ever like you, and you don't really want to win that badly either. Embrace the dark side. Use your hate, young mill player. For some reason, don't ask me why, people hate mill more than infect. I have no idea what's going on with that. I think it's because all the cards they laboriously put in their decks end up in the graveyard just staring up at them in disappointment and shame. That's how everyone will look at you when you pick up Phenax. Mill is incredibly tough because you have to mill 240 cards or so to win, and that's a tall order in Commander. That's why we pack the deck with a few combos to compete in the rough and tumble jungle of casual Commander. Phenax is the Therosian god of cheats and liars. He governs gambling, deception, betrayal, isolation, planning, and secrets. It's like a Tuesday night at my house. He's worshipped by criminals and others who wish to subvert the rules. Phenax is associated with the returned, Theros' undead, who follow his path back from the underworld, as he is the first of their number. I like his art too. He kind of looks like Christopher Lloyd a little from Back to the Future. Phenax, God of Deception, is 3 blue and a black for a legendary enchantment creature, Gird. He's a 4/7, indestructible. As long as your devotion to blue and black is less than 7, Phenax isn't a creature. Creatures you control have tap, target player mills X cards, where X is this creature's toughness. So reading this commander, we have a mill strategy enabled by high toughness creatures. I've had this deck for a long while, and thusly do I own some expensive cards for it. It's crazy because a lot of these didn't start out that way. In this game, if you wait a while, your cards appreciate in value for the most part. Aside from value, this deck plays a little differently than what you may be used to. Just keep in mind, if your commander gets imprisoned in the moon, your deck is bricked. Let's talk key strategies. So we're going to have 36 creatures. This is a creature-based mill deck. We have lots of draw and utility on our creatures. We want number 2 creatures who feed off graveyards. And number 3, we have some key artifacts that further our strategy. Number 4, we're going to be playing with the graveyards. And number 5, we have combos and win conditions. This is a deck where we can run some walls. How exciting. Wall of Frost, Wall of Junk. We have some other walls we'll talk about. Drift of Phantasms is a great transmute card and can be transmuted into a Rhystic Study or a Night Howler. Merfolk's Secret Keeper has a mill spell attached and pulls double duty as a creature. Mill Keeper will capitalize on all the irrational hate that's directed our way. I also have Fleet Swallower in this deck. I just wanted to give that a mention. Avatar of Woe can tap to remove a creature at instant speed, and Kefnet the Mindful has a fantastic 5/5 body for just 3 mana. Our object is to mill, not attack, so this is a great stat line for us in this deck. Avatar of Woe was originally printed in Prophecy. This card features art by RK Post, and I just want to take a second to appreciate this artist. Check out RK Post. There's some beautiful art by this creative genius out there, and hey, here's your flowers. Let's talk about Sire of Stagnation and Consecrated Sphinx. So these cards fit great in this deck as draw engines. They're going to draw a lot of hate as well. People are going to want to remove these immediately, which will maybe take some heat off of our commander and hopefully draw us a couple cards before they go away. When you're selecting cards for a mill deck, I mean, it'd be great if you could just include, 0/7 walls for 2 mana, but you want some creatures that perform some function, that have some utility, and can also mill our opponents on our opponent's last end step. Ruined Crab is perfect for this. It has a great mill effect stapled right onto it. Cards like little cards like Loyal Drake draw us a card, Mole Drifter, things like that. It's a cool little flyer and can be a blocker for us if we're getting attacked in the air. This is more of a fun interactive deck. This is not a low to the ground combo machine, so we can just kind of take a break and enjoy life and put in creatures that we like as well. We also have a few mill spells, Maddening Cacophony and Whispering Madness and Windfall. Wheels are usually better for us. The carefully sculpted hand our opponents are gripping will end up in the graveyard. Okay, we also want creatures that interact with the graveyard so we can capitalize on all this mill that we're putting into our opponents' graveyards. Body Double and Havengul Lich are great fits in this deck, providing us some recursion, and they also say a graveyard, so we can target a card in our opponent's graveyard as well. Sepulchral Primordial gets us our opponent's creatures, and Necrotic Ooze gets us activated abilities of creatures in graveyards. This is one of my favorite cards of all time, and I use it in quite a few decks. I'm currently trialing a Dauthi Voidwalker out of Modern Horizons 2. I love this card. I have it in a bunch of decks, and we can make use of some bomb we luck into milling. The problem is it exiles our mill cards, so it's a non-bow with some of our creatures that feed off graveyards. But Phenax costs 5 to cast, so even a bigger ramp spell, Cultivate or something like that can aid us on turn 3. Lazav Dimir Mastermind is a blue, a black, and a black for a legendary creature Shapeshifter, 3/3 with hexproof. Whenever a creature card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, you may have Lazav Dimir Mastermind become a copy of that card, except its name is Lazav Dimir Mastermind, and it's a legendary in addition to its other types, and it has hexproof and this ability. This Shapeshifter is what this deck's all about. He was my first commander, and it's a really fun card to play. It was my first commander deck, and it won its first game way back in 2013 or somewhere along those lines. All right, now we come to a subtype of creature that makes sense together in my mind. These cards get bigger the more cards we mill. I often have this situation where I can mill one person pretty far out with one of these huge creatures, but I don't have enough to mill everyone out. So either they become my hostage or they just devote resources to taking me out. The cool thing about this deck is that the milling can be done at instant speed. So if we hold these creatures back and wait to see what they do, we can respond when they attack or try to Swords to Plowshares Phenax. It's a very versatile strategy. All right, first one is Consuming Aberration. Consuming Aberration is 3, a blue and a black for a creature horror star. Consuming Aberration's power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your opponent's graveyards. Whenever you cast a spell, each opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land card, then puts those cards into their graveyard. All right, then we have Night Howler, 1 black for an enchantment creature horror 0/0. Bestow, 2, a black and a black. If you cast this card for its bestow cost, it's an aura spell with enchant creature. It becomes a creature again if it's not attached to a creature. So ideally we want to bestow this onto one of our creatures. Night Howler and enchanted creature each get +X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. And White of Precinct 6 gets +1/+1 for each creature card in our opponent's graveyards. Sewer Nemesis is a mini consuming aberration for one opponent. Mordivore is very similar to White of Precinct 6. This category of cards can get very big once we start milling our opponents in earnest, and will snowball out the more turns that they're on the battlefield. All right, now we have some artifacts that further our strategy. 1,000-Year Elixir guarantees we can use our mill activated abilities granted by Phenax on the turn that our creature enters the battlefield. Mesmeric Orb is a house in this deck. Mesmeric Orb is 2 colorless for an artifact. Whenever a permanent becomes untapped, that permanent's controller mills a card. This card was very expensive for a while. It was reprinted in, I believe, Double Masters and dropped in price, and I picked up a copy immediately. Swiftfoot Boots and Lightning Greaves give our creatures haste. They also give some protection, so we can get to milling the same turn cycle. Our bigger creatures come down. Crashing Drawbridge costs just 2 mana, has a big butt, and can give our creatures haste or just help us mill cards with Phenax. All right, we definitely want to sprinkle in a little recursion in this kind of deck. Mnemonic Betrayal is a really cool card. This lets us use our opponent's removal against them. Mnemonic Betrayal, 1 blue and a black for a sorcery. Exile all opponents' graveyards. You may cast spells from among those cards this turn, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast those spells. At the beginning of the next end step, if any of those creatures remain exiled, return them to their owner's graveyards. Exile Mnemonic Betrayal. With Sir Conrad the Grim on the battlefield, you have cards both exiting and entering the graveyard with this one card, so that can be a win condition with him as well. And then we have Rise of the Dark Realms, 7 black. It's a 9-cost sorcery. Put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. We also have a copy of Reanimate to get any of these bangers we mill out. All right, let's move on to some of our win conditions. Sir Conrad the Grim. This is going to be a mouthful. 3 black for a legendary creature, Human Knight, 5/4. Whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. 1 and a black, each player mills a card. This guy has way too much text not to be a win condition. If you're putting cards in the graveyard, he's going to start pinging everybody. Then we have Eater of the Dead, 4 and a black for a creature horror, 3/4. You have 0. If Eater of the Dead is tapped, exile target creature card from a graveyard and untap Eater of the Dead. Even the putrid muscles of the dead can provide some strength to those loathsome enough to consume them. This is an indeterminate combo with Phenax. We can usually mill everyone out with this, unless no one is playing any creatures. Let's take a moment to appreciate that art. This is some kind of Cthulhu monster with eyes and teeth in its torso, and strangely dog-like nose. I bought my only copy for $5 and now it's $40 and climbing, baby. How times change. Our other combo involves Mindcrank and either Duskmantle Guildmage or Bloodchief's Ascension. Any card entering the graveyard triggers an infinite loop of damage and mill, and damage and mill. That's a beautiful thing to witness. It does take some work to get Bloodchief Ascension online, but many turns our opponents are taking incidental damage or they're damaging themselves with fetch lands and things like that. I do have a couple tutors in this deck to get us our key combo pieces, Demonic Tutor and Scheming Symmetry. You can let an opponent tutor for something, then immediately mill it away for bonus jerk points as well. The rest of the deck is a rotating cast of creatures, removal, mill spells, board wipes, and fun interactive cards. Listen, this deck isn't meant to be a competitive CEDH deck. It has no turn 0 fast mana, demonic consultation, Thoracle, insta-win. This is a turn 7 to 9 deck with a ton of interaction and lots of decision points. You need to pay close attention to people's graveyards and what is milled and what other people are doing. It's fun, for me anyways. Everyone else will hate you, but this can win in more casual pods. Mill is an underpowered strategy, but really fun if you can make it work. This deck plays a little mean sometimes. There are a couple tutors that can seem like you're just tutoring up win conditions and no one really has answers. I usually target one deck to power up my Consuming Aberration type creatures. At that point, you can usually point a big burst of mill at another player and hope to have one of your win conditions online. All the creature mill can be done at instant speed, so you can react with a nuclear option if a player threatens a board wipe or some devastating play. You say, sure, you could do that, but I'll mill you out. Anyway, please like and subscribe. Don't go down the dark path of mill if your mind isn't ready, please. Prepare yourself. Armor your thoughts for a long look into the abyss. This is going to be Nicky G from Better Commander signing off.